Hello, everyone. On the very special day, 26th of May, which we will get into, I am honored and so happy to be joined by Ashala again because everyone on my channel loves Ashala, especially after last round table. I had so many beautiful comments, and I'm so happy because I really enjoy your presence too. So welcome back, Ashala. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Anya. I'm happy to be here. Yeah.
So, as we have spoken prior to our recording, we had some very interesting experiences with technology. But let's start with this day because you had such a great Sunday sampler, soul sampler, which I like. Again, I listen to those Sunday recordings. They are so wonderful, just wonderful energy. So, Ashala, what's happening today? What is so special about the 26th?
So, and I'm about to later on today because I'm going on a little vacation leaving tomorrow morning. So I'm going to record my Sunday sampler early because I'm going camping to a beautiful hot springs here for 4 days over my birthday weekend.
It's your birthday? Wait. When is your birthday?
On Saturday. So I'm leaving tomorrow morning. And the reason I'm saying all this is because I'm going to record my Sunday sampler today. And it just feels so auspicious because not only is today a full moon in the sign of Sagittarius, which I'll be talking about in my offering that I'm going to be doing right after our interview. And it's also a lunar eclipse, which, I mean, these happen periodically every year. However, each time they happen, the eclipses are like bringing a tremendous focus and awareness to what is happening at that particular moment astrologically for the whole planet. And this one lines up with an incredible prophecy that's almost in line with something like the Mayan prophecy of the calendar completion, December 21st, 2012. This is actually perhaps an earlier prophecy connected to the Aztec and perhaps even the Incan civilization, where they say that we move from the fifth sun into the sixth sun on May the 26th, 2021. And it's very interesting that we have the 2012 and the 2021, just like a reverse of the number, the 1 and the 2 in a different position. So somehow in this span of time between December 21st, 2012 and May 26, 2021, we have this extraordinary moment in really the history of our civilization that lines up that switch of the fifth sun to the sixth sun. It happens every 6,000 years. So this is the day where that transition is completed, and it's like a beautiful restart for humanity. And if we think about the forces that have been dominating our planet during the time of the fifth sun, and all of what we've been talking about on your channels and Janine's channels and so on, this reset is supposed to be about allowing us to literally rebirth ourselves into this next wave of the sixth sun. And I talked about the number 5 and the number 6 in my last soul sampler. So the sixth sun being so much more about harmony and synthesis. The fifth sun, was about having to grow, having to learn and evolve in a very rapid fashion, a very chaotic fashion. And the sixth sun is bringing everything back into harmony. And we have 6,000 years to do that, thank goodness, because we have a lot of work to do.
Ashala, you know what? No, seriously, this is so great talking to you. So when you were saying this, you know what came to me? Because I wrote a poem when we had the beginning of this year for 2021. I wrote a poem for 2021. And that was about number 5. But when you were now saying about the sixth sun and every 6,000 years, what came to me, Ashala, is the next year, which is 2022, which comes to 6.
Yes. Yes. Beautiful. Beautiful. I love it. we're literally discovering these synchronicities moment by moment, aren't we?
Yes,
Together
and I'm
as
like,
we
wow.
share.
Yeah, I didn't think about it. So now the sixth sun means the rebirth and like a new phase for everything, really.
Yes.
So don't you think, maybe we can ask cards later. I didn't plan on this. It just came to me, Ashala. Don't you think the next year will be this year really for seeing that rebirth in like a full spectrum?
Yes. And because we are still in a 5-year, what that allows us is we work with that energy of the 5, which is the principle of chaos. And when, like what I said in the offering, as we move into that chaotic principle, the more courageous and sort of strong in character we become, the more we allow it to strengthen our character and not to undermine us or discourage or put us off balance, but we allow it to sort of train us into discovering more of our inner true strength and true value. Then we are ready to, almost like it kind of carves us out in a way that we can hold more in that harmonic vibration that's coming. And it's already here. I mean, we see overlaps with all of these systems where it's, you know, it's synchronizing with all of these other prophecies and systems and timelines. So we are definitely feeling this, but each one of these marker stones allows us to go another level into it. So I'm just delighted to be sharing with you on this day in this way.
No, it's so, I mean, you're literally like glowing. I'm looking at you and I'm like, just, I see the light. I see that. So it's amazing. It's beautiful. Okay, so I have like 3 kind of groups that I want to ask you, like topics.
Okay.
Because what I would like to do also, like, remember last time we did Ashala, the reading of for May energies.
Yes.
So I would like to know for the coming month of June what to expect.
Okay.
Maybe we can start with this, and then I have some other questions.
Okay, that sounds lovely. That sounds lovely. I'm just clearing the cards to begin and looking at June of 2021. Very exciting.
Can you believe it's June already, like the middle of...
I actually cannot believe it's June already. Yes. And I just love how all of these numbers are coming to us. So many of us, I feel, have been noticing numbers even for the last several years. It's been a hot topic, you know, in the conscious community. It's been this, are you noticing the 3 numbers, you know, the 111s or the 444s or whatever? And I feel as though, you know, numbers are a vibration. And so I feel it's an easy way for spirit to communicate with us. You know, it's a very easy, natural way.
I love that too.
And if we understand the meaning of the numerology of the numbers from 1 to 9, then we can read those messages effortlessly. It's kind of like having a telegram going between us.
Exactly. That's so
true. Spirit guide. Yeah.
Like direct connection, like.
Yeah. Yes, like a telephone or a telegram. Totally. So interesting that I got the same card in the position of ourselves as I did for my last week's Sunday Soul Sampler, which is this 3 of Swords. And I talked about how it means the healing has begun. People look at that card and they feel very, you know, anxious. And the idea that it's not about scaring us, it's about allowing us to see that, you know, whether we acknowledge it or not, those pains, those traumas, those wounds, we carry them. And once that the healing process is underway, the best thing we can do is to really support that healing and not to run away from it or try to, you know, close it off. And also to support ourselves with balance through that healing. So the month of June, the Fool card being this trusting, you know, when this card comes up and people ask a question, they get the Fool, I say, you know, we're not meant to know. So there's going to be a little bit of that hidden things are we're kept in the dark to a certain extent, because if we knew too much, we might start getting very anxious. And what this anxiety is showing us, this Nine of Swords and the Knight of Swords, is that it's bringing up anger, old anger. And this has come up this week as a theme for me in my readings. And I think it's so valuable to share this because it's about the question why. So a lot of times we get angry because we say, why? Why is spirit doing this? Or why is this person acting this way? Or why are the sleepers asleep? Or why don't people see the signs? Why, aren't my family listening? And on and on and on. And that creates a tremendous amount of anxiety, frustration, and anger. And we feel somehow that like we've done something wrong, or we feel very personally affronted by these things. We're asking the question why all the time. And what was shown in a reading that I did this week is that when we feel that way, it's important to turn the why around and ask it to yourself. So when you're saying, why is this person not listening? Or why is this country acting in this way? To say, why am I experiencing this? What is it about for me? How am I somehow a part of this matrix? What is my role in this? How am I continuing to help this live and co-creating this? And, it feels very esoteric and abstract when you first start doing it. But if you actually ask yourself a question when you're in that state of anger and frustration, you say, you're going, why is anything outside of me happening? If you turn it around, you will find this peace instantly, because you'll be able to say, oh, right, it's this part of me that's still attached to that, or it's this part of me that's afraid of this, or it's this part of me that feels disappointed in myself that I didn't do things differently 5 years ago or 10 years ago or whatever. So we're dealing with a lot of those whys this month, bringing up the anger and the frustration. And it's really important not to turn on yourself, but to turn inward and ask yourself the question why.
Yeah.
And find the beautiful answer in that. This is an ending. The Tower, the 10 of Wands. For those of you that have been watching Janine for a while,
yes,
wow.
I mean, like actually just thinking Janine, what she always says with 10 of Wands.
Yeah, it's, we're completing, the old system is falling. This is the advice. It's like, in a way we're standing up and cheering and going, yay, the system falling down. And then in another way, we're going, oh my gosh, what is replacing it? In the past, we have the goddess, the empress, this beautiful energy of, again, like I said, to me this year, there's a massive theme around reclaiming the healthy feminine. This is the divine mother, bringing back the harmony, the connection with Mother Nature. And here in this moment, what's happening as these systems fall is
what is
the
this
new
card, Ashala?
this is the Ace of Pentacles.
Oh, okay.
So it's a rebirth in the physical realm. We were just talking about this, Anya, before we started the interview, about how we're, our old computer systems are crashing, and our old, it's like literally the old systems.
Yes.
And the time to rebirth, refresh, recreate ourselves. We will need to have this Queen of Swords. We will need to have good boundaries this month, mostly with ourselves, mostly with our tendency to go into anger. It's very interesting because I'm not seeing as much fear here as I'm seeing anger. And so we really want to, when we start going to that angry place, we want to turn that around and say, why does this matter to me? Why do I feel this way? Obviously, underneath that, there could be fear, but I feel like there's a bigger message happening. Yes. And then on the other side, I have this King of Swords and the Three of Cups. So the King of Swords is this master visionary. It's like he's the most masterful of all the intellect cards. So he's there working away, researching, designing new paradigms, creating new systems of currency, creating new systems of government. It's such a beautiful card. And we've got underneath it, the joy, the playfulness, this approaching it like a little bit less seriously, a little bit more like, kind of dynamically with enthusiasm and curiosity. So yeah, big stuff continues to crumble. We have boundaries within ourselves, with ourselves. We ask ourselves that question, why? And there's still mysteries. That fool is saying we can't know the whole story.
Can I just say thank you so much? I love this. I mean, when you're reading like this, I'm just connecting the dots in me, and I love this. It's because it really, it's like on so many levels. It's very complex, yet it's actually quite simple when you break it down.
Yes.
Because you know, it's again. Yesterday I was driving, and this like stuff comes, and this picture came to me, like a conversation with the spirit. It was almost like I'm driving, spirits talking, and I hear, just think about the mirror. And I know this is very like a cliche, like people repeat this a lot. If you look in the mirror, you see a reflection of yourself. So you have to change to see a different reflection, okay? So everyone who we come across is actually a reflection of ourselves, of that or the other that we are still working on. And when you said Ashala about, I mean, you just said this exactly, like it was like a precursor to our conversation. And then you said about the anger. You know what came to me about the anger? Especially with your last cards that you pulled about this creator who's very like a magician, and he's what came to me, the anger can also come from when we are ready for change. I feel like when people are ready for change, the change is easier. But when they are in a certain system, and then the system or the reality or the structure is being crushed, and they had this sense of security, or maybe more like a familiar reality, that's maybe where the anger comes from, because they are not quite ready for change. It's almost like the change is forced upon them.
Yes, I agree. And you know, it really reminds me, for some reason I'm being reminded of that movie about, I think it's called It's a Beautiful Life. The movie about it, set in Italy, with the man whose little son, they were put into a concentration camp during the war, and somehow through seeing it through the lens of the eye of a child and staying in that really light, like imaginatory place, right? They were able to like sidestep all this horrible stuff. And somehow he managed to like weave that amidst what like the illusion of what was happening. I mean, it was very real on some level, but they recreated it to be a different experience. And I think that's what we're being asked to do right now, like to continue to hold our vibrational truth amidst all of this outer chaos, and we will find our way, just like the little hobbits finding their way through Mordor. You know, we will find our way through this if we can stay in that beautiful, almost childlike, innocent place. But also, like that parent in that movie, he had the wisdom to guide that flow and the intention to hold to that truth and not to be taken down by those dark forces around him.
So true.
So
you know, when you said about this movie, you know what came to my mind? That actor, I don't know if you remember, when he won the award, Oscar. Now I have completely different opinion about this whole institution, but that moment I remember when he was literally so joyful, like in that movie, he was jumping over the seats. That actor, like if you check now Ashala, I'm like, oh my gosh, like he was so genuinely happy that like in the movie, like he was jumping over the seats, he was like freaking out, you know, with the
his character got right in there. Yeah, and you know, there you bring a point, because for many of us, like we're dealing with this, our own fear, anger, and frustration every day. And sometimes we almost have to act differently just to like get ourselves out of that state. Like it can feel like we're putting it on in a way. But the more you do that, the more that starts to be your reality. Like, you know, if you, it's that little bit like fake it till you make it. Like if we want to see things differently, allow ourselves to step into a different role and relationship with the outer world and really play with that. Of course, we're going to fall out of that lots,
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
but we're going to start to see how good it feels to stay in that more imaginative, playful space, as opposed to being so ridden by our anxiety and our anger.
Yes. And it's the
Yeah.
focus. And now when you're saying this again, like another thing comes to me, that we actually have
Mm.
been given a gift for over a year not to have any new movies, so we can create our own movie. Okay. Like,
Whoa.
seriously, like I said
Yeah.
on my Instagram a while ago, I said, don't you understand? This is clearly to me what they were doing. This is how we co-create. You tell a story, you present an image, people focus on it, and by the focus and the emotion that the image creates, the energy is flowing. Because emotion, energy in motion, so it flows.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how is this is amazing? Like, we have no movies now, which means they don't tell another crazy story.
Mm-hmm.
We can create our own story.
We can. And like I said before, I think in our last interview, getting in touch with our imagination, getting reconnected with that. And sometimes we have to really step out of our normal paradigm to do that. That's why I had encouraged people this last week to have a little day trip or a little holiday of some kind, to just step outside of your normal reality in whatever way you can, and feel yourself, allow yourself to have that reset, because you know, this is the week of the big reset for us, spiritual reset, and then all the other resets.
I love this. I love this. So, Ashala, I want to ask you about this.
Yes.
Someone, before I jump to another question, this question is actually related, I think. You remember the interview we had a while ago? You mentioned, it was so beautifully said. I just don't want to twist your words, that
Mm.
it was like when someone is passing over,
Mm-hmm.
transitioning, I say re-emerge to non-physical, like Abraham Hicks, who I love.
Yeah.
Yeah, love this. Re-emerging to non-physical. So
Mm.
it's a boat. You said that ancestors. How you said this beautifully? Boat made of tears. What was that?
Mhm. So the boat made of tears is about, it's our emotional grief, and grief is a very interesting topic. The teacher that I studied with, Martine Prechtel, talks about grief in the way that it is the beauty of our love of life. So we grieve things that matter enough to us, that make us feel that tremendous emotion. So it's very connected to love. If we can allow the grief to flow naturally, it can move us through all those stages, the anger, which is kind of what we're going through right now, you know, and then the sorrow, and then eventually to the place of loving acceptance and the integration of that grief. So when our loved ones cross over, if we can really allow that grief to emerge in such a beautiful way, you know, it's that thing about where we tell the stories. This is what many Indigenous traditions do when they have their loved ones pass over. They tell the story of their life, and they really work it so that everyone is just crying and crying and crying, you know, for days, and yet laughing too, and celebrating the life of that person.
Yes.
And that apparently creates this emotional kind of vehicle for them to journey across,
Wow.
because it's a you know, they say in different traditions that it's a journey through those transitional worlds, and that loving energy, that beautiful emotional vehicle, which is all that they've built in their lifetime,
Yes.
basically, that is just sails them through
Yeah.
the in-between lands in such a good way.
I love what you know. I actually, the more I listen to you, the more I appreciate how you communicate. I really love the vocabulary that you use. I feel like you're painting with your words, you're painting
Mm.
the message. It's like almost tangible for me when you speak, you know?
Thank you.
It's
Thank
very
you.
special. It's you have a gift, Ashala, of using words in such a poetic but direct way, which it's not easy, you know? Wow.
Mm.
But you know, when you were saying this, I felt like in a way, those tribes, they are helping the soul to reemerge, because some souls, they are not at ease.
Yes. Yes. And, you know, many souls, I feel in our lineage, many souls are not at ease. Are we ready to get into ancestry?
That's exactly what I was going to.
Okay. Because I have some good news around that. It's quite discouraging as a concept when you start to really realize, you know, Indigenous people all over the earth have regarded the ancestors, particularly the last 7 generations. We hear that is connected to Native American traditions, and it's also connected to other Indigenous traditions around the world. And this idea that those 7 generations are tremendously influential to us, that each of those generations have a role to play in our present incarnation, and that by having some kind of meaningful connection or relationship with those people, those souls that have passed, we can have a more like fulfilling and fulfilling and meaningful life here in the present, in our present incarnation. And yet most of us are aware that there's a lot of trauma in those generations, particularly for those of us, well, of European descent, but really anywhere in the world now, for the last many generations, even if you're in a very remote part where your Indigenous origins have been intact for thousands of years. In the last 100 years or so, there's been tremendous impact on that, and a lot of suffering and a lot of trauma. So it can be very frightening to think about that. And most people are like, I just want to get rid of all that. Can we just cut it off and start afresh? And I mean, I have so much compassion for that desire, because of course we can see the potential of a new world, a new beginning, just as we were talking about earlier. And we're so excited to get to that. And yet we don't realize it's kind of like leaving half of ourselves behind, an essential half of ourselves, almost like the bottom half of ourselves that connects us to the earth. We need to bring the whole physical vehicle with us. Otherwise, we might as well transcend to another dimension and not be here in physical form at all. So when we bring that physical vehicle with us, we're bringing our genetic karma with us. And it's our birthright. It's our gift. It's a beautiful thing. And yes, it's messy. And yes, there's a lot of trauma and a lot of grief and a lot of, as you say, souls that are, you know, unsettled.
Yes.
But the beautiful message is that we can, just like when you go into a store and you have a challenge with your, you know, the frontline worker or whatever, and you say, may I speak to your superior? And then you don't get anywhere and you say, may I speak to the regional representative, please? That's what I've experienced working with ancestral healing over the decades that I've been doing it, is that we can actually go over the trauma and continue to follow sort of like a skipping stone through time to find the beautiful strength that in some place in our past, there is a healthy Indigenous tradition that is very spiritually intact. And we can tap into that. And then how I see it is that we stand here and hold our end of it. They stand and hold that end of it. And everything in between begins to heal. So because people say, well, you know, I can't get along with my family. Sometimes their own parents, their own grandparents, and certainly when we get back a couple of generations, most people don't know anything about them. And they say, well, I don't know who they are. And I just know there's a lot of trauma and I don't know what to do about it. And that's where the sessions that I offer is about accessing an ancestor on our 7-generation wheel that can act like a mediator between the further out realms, the much further back stories. And, you know, those beautiful strengths are our gifts. So in your background, Anya, there will be people who've managed through all of the different transitions and traumas and upheaval and cultural, you know, disconnection. They've managed to hold these threads intact. That's how you become who you are today, and how you're able to have these visions and these experiences and feel these feelings. you know, even though you may not see it in your own family, surrounding family, or grandparents, or even great grandparents, you're like this anomaly that you can be this person. You're connecting way back. It's kind of like a thread in a tapestry that goes back.
Yes, I have to do this with you. I want to try this with you when maybe next month when you have time to schedule this session with you. I would love
I would
to.
love to do this. I would love to
You
share
know,
this with you.
because this is for me, like, I always felt, especially when I had this awareness, that I came here to break certain chains in my family.
Mm-hmm.
Certain
Yeah.
chains of pain, that's what I mean. And I know many, many people can relate to it.
Mm-hmm.
Many people are recognizing that. And when you were talking about this Ashala, I feel like, tell me if this is how you see as well, that we come to existence over and over again to work on certain
Mm-hmm.
topics or certain things for the evolution of the soul. And
Mm-hmm.
there is a repetition if we don't resolve this. So
Mm-hmm.
I almost feel like this time it's easier in this frequency, it's
Mm-hmm.
easier to recognize the issue,
Mm-hmm.
to maybe not even work on the issue, but recognize it, understand it, and release it. What do you think?
Mm-hmm. Definitely, definitely. First of all, I want to speak to what you said about the breaking the chains, and what my guides are suggesting is that we can think of it as we just put down the chains and we strengthen the bonds.
I love
So
this.
we just drop the chains.
Yeah, drop it. Drop it.
Because what we want to do is strengthen the bond.
Wow.
And as we strengthen the bond, the chains start to fall away.
Wow. So there's focus again. It's like focusing on those strengths and gifts that our ancestors we carry on instead
Yeah.
of focusing on the issue.
Well, the issue will be revealed when it's, you know, especially if you come at it from that way, it will be revealed in its right time and place in a way that can be really supported in the healing and integration. And I just want to say to you, Anya, I mean, I sound like I've got this all figured out, but truly I have to do this day in and day out, moment to moment. I have to remind myself again and again and again, you know, I'm there fighting those things, like, oh, I'm mad and I'm breaking those chains, and then I'm like, oh, right.
Yeah, if we can only have dogs and trees around, that would be easy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in the sessions with my people and I'm right there with them. Like, I'm right in the, you know, that very tangible angst, or you know, sorrowful place. Like,
Yeah.
it's not necessarily an easy thing, but there is ease and grace in it. And if we can allow ourselves more and more to focus on that, it does start to build a trust within us that there's something there. You know, I have this beautiful story with one of my ancestors where, I mean, my own journey of finding my birth family, not knowing anything about my background, and then discovering this incredible, rich history, um, and also all the trauma and challenge associated with that. Um, one particular ancestor, which is my grandmother on my father's side, I was so curious to find out more about her, and there was no information anywhere. And all the rest of my ancestry, I was working on and getting more and more background and information. And hers was like this big puzzle, and it felt kind of sad. And then I was going to go with my mother to visit her grave. This was about 4 or 5 years ago, perhaps. And just before I went, the day we were going to go, it was quite a drive. It was like 3 hours drive to go to where she was buried, and I wanted to do that. And the day that we were going, I got up in the morning and I thought, oh, you know, what the heck? I'm just going to look on the internet and see if there's anything new, because literally, I mean, genealogy is just such a hot topic, a hot interest for people right now. And these databases are increasing daily, like new information is coming on. And I hadn't looked in several months. I opened it up, and wouldn't you know, I found this incredible, like I found a big piece of her story, which began to open up more and more of the background. It just suddenly showed up on something I'd already searched like a year or more previous to that. And it was almost like she was saying to me, okay, you're really, you mean this, you're coming to see my grave, I'm gonna I'm gonna help you, I'm gonna like open up you know, some
where was she from?
Ireland.
Irish.
Yeah, she's Irish.
Have you been?
So,
Have you been?
no, I have not been to Ireland, and she was a couple second or third generation in Canada. But anyway, the story with her goes on and on, because as I began to understand more about her and learn more about her background, at one point I was doing some healing work with her and her mother, and because it had come through in a session that I was doing. And afterwards I went for a walk, and I literally could feel her inside of me. I could feel her, and she was saying, stand up straight, stand up straight, granddaughter. She was just saying this, like, you know, you can stand up. And this is speaking to what you were saying, Anya, where they're saying, our ancestors are saying, now is the time where we can do this healing. Because she said that she eventually just was sort of crouched over, and that she was so grateful to be able to feel the effect of how much power we have right now.
It's amazing, Ashala. Like she was working, and she was like working on her through you.
Yes, yes. And I felt her. I could literally feel like there was some other a familiar feeling, because she's part of me. But it was like, and I could just feel her feeling so proud and so grateful that she could stand and hold her head high. And do you know, my posture has been better since then. I kid you not. It's like I stand up straighter now. And I'm like, okay, this is really cool.
I love this. The posture also, like the posture helps your emotions.
Yes. Yes. So these are the kind of little gifts that are available. And like you said, yes, we can now do things that they couldn't have dreamed of doing. And that this time in especially this incredible day that we're on today, and this opportunity of resetting, what a beautiful time to invite them into this, you know, healing journey with us. And I like to say, you know, we do a meditation at the beginning of the session and tune into a place where we're aligned with the vibration of the heart and the greater good of all, so that the ancestors that are coming in those sessions are the ones that are ready, willing, and able to work on that vibrational level. And then we can start to lift up the ones that are not there. You know, we can start to, and they make themselves known at the right time and place. You know, sometimes people come in with a big agenda, like I've got to fix this thing, and then they end up getting sort of, you know, taken on a detour, and it comes around. Often it'll come around, you know, 6 months to a year later, they'll be like, oh, now I get it. And I don't even need to fix that thing anymore. So
I love this. I honestly, I feel, you know what I feel, Ashala, within next month, if I could try this session with you, so then I can share with the audience. I don't have problem sharing like personal, deep emotional experiences, because I think people need to hear those things, because it helps them to heal as well. That's how I feel.
It really does. It really does. And, you know, we help each other. Every single session I do, I learned so much. I feel just so like I could cry. I feel so honored to be invited into people's beautiful, intimate family constellations. You know, it's like, it's so precious. It's truly precious. And miracles happen there.
Thank
Really.
you, Ashala. It was so beautiful. It's like we are all connected. There's no separation.
Yes. And then, I mean, that gets into kind of more of the science of this type of research, where, you know, people often say, okay, so we know, I love this imagery. We think of our ancestry as being these two lines behind us, the one on right and the one on left, when in fact, it's like concentric circles. So we are at the center, and then we have two parents, that's the next ring, and then 4 grandparents is the next ring. 8 great grandparents is the next ring.
Wow.
And then 16 second great grandparents. Yes.
And then it all comes to like
32 third and 64 fourth. So in the wheel of, that's your seventh generation. In that wheel, there's 126 people that you are equally related to, and yourself 127 in the middle. So it's incredibly daunting in a way, because you just realize it's almost like a fractal. It's just getting bigger and bigger. But then people say, but how can it get bigger? The numbers get bigger, but when we go back in time, there's less people on the planet. Well,
and you connect.
Guess what? We are all woven together. When you go back, the weave gets tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter.
So like, so let's be nice to each other, because we are related anyway.
Because we are all related. Right, cousin? Yeah. And even, you know, we get tripped up with the idea of like skin color and, you know, and race, ethnicity, and also nationality and things like that. And, you know, there's been some unfortunate experimentation done around that kind of thing, where we realized that, I believe it was in Australia, where they were trying to determine how many generations it would take to turn an Aboriginal person into a European. So they were actually, yeah, they were actually, you know, watching the cycle of reproduction to see how long it would take before the person looked completely European with blonde hair and blue eyes. And it was 6 generations where they virtually any trace of their Aboriginal features or identity was erased. And of course, obviously also of their culture and all of the benefits of that. So however, we can also learn from that, you know, we may, within even 7 generations, have ancestors that have completely different skin color, completely different nationalities and ethnicities, and that it may not look like it the way we present in this day and age, in this time and space. However, you know, and therefore, I feel it's
such a good point you said this, you know, such a good point. You're right. Like when you're saying this, it's clear, like exactly, because we just think it has to look like us and be like us or be similar, and like in order to come from us. But like you're saying, this is so amazing to go further and further in the past, and they might be completely different.
They very likely are. I mean, the odds are, when you go back and you have 64 people that are your 4th great grandparents, it's very likely that one of them is not the ethnicity that you present as now, at least. I mean, the odds are like that, right? I mean, there are, I think, some rare occasions where people are, you know, their ancestors are from a very small location where nobody has moved around for a really long time, an isolated place. And in that case, you could have 7 generations that are all of that same ethnicity. But I think for most of us with European background, there's been a lot of migrations and travel and interaction with different cultures. So just something to think about. And I know there was also a study done, or I don't recall the exact place and time of this, but it was between Israeli and Palestinian people, and they did a genetic study, and they discovered that many of them had like common ancestors. And so it really brings a different perspective to the conflict that they're struggling with, because if they actually are related, then,
which is stimulated from the outside, by the way, this whole conflict.
Exactly.
That's
exactly.
So Ashala, I will say, first of all, before I forget, before we say goodbye, I want to wish you the most magical happy birthday.
Oh, thank you, Anya.
Beautiful, beautiful time on your trip, and some great magical moments with intentions that you set forth, and they will all come to fruition.
Thank you. Thank you. It's beautiful to be able to take some time. I've been very busy of late, but to have this time in nature where I can reset and really integrate this beautiful time that we're in.
Yes.
And I encourage all of you, in whatever capacity you can, to give yourself that opportunity.
When I look at you, I can almost see like you going through the forest and you just like, I don't know, I just have this image and you can like communicate and you hear it. I don't know, there is something very, very, it's like a beautiful mystery. Like you're like like, you know, like people were writing legends about people in those stories. I see you like that. Like in a great book, like a legend book, and then there is this character who knows a lot, but is very like humble and goes to certain villages and shows up and clears it up.
Oh, wow. Well, I feel that I've met so many extraordinary people through doing my readings and teaching my classes over the years. And one thing that I've really learned, and I'm so glad I have, is that you just never know. You cannot judge a book by its cover. And the most extraordinary characters live inside all different types of people. Like, I feel like we each have a fairy tale archetype inside of us, truly. And so this is our opportunity to discover that and to discover our part in the big story,
Yes.
the part that we get to play, and to inspire each other with the beauty of playing our part so eloquently.
Thank you so much for today. Really appreciate you. And people can find you on Eye of the World down below the links and on ASHALA'S channel. And we will connect again soon.
And we will, dear Anya. I'm so delighted. And happy month of May, the end of May, and happy birth of the time of the sixth sun to you as well.
Thank you so much for watching, everyone. Subscribe to ASHALA, and until next time.